get in on time. I'm going to welcome you tonight. My name's Lisa Marks. I'm co-president with Yatin Chu of Place New York City. And we want to welcome you and just let you know, congratulations, you're already ahead of the game because you're here and you're invested and you're becoming more informed. And that's so important as a parent to stay informed about what's going on in your child's school, other schools, and entire New York City school system, because so many changes happen every year that it's really important to keep abreast of the news and what are the trends and especially the admissions policies. So with that, we're going to talk about kindergarten and middle school offers. You've got them by now, but what's next? We have Deborah Alexander here today, hi Deb, who is a very experienced parent. She has an 8th grader and a high schooler in what grade?
11th.
11th. And she's been through it all. She's also been on the Community Education Council in her district, in District 30, for over 10 years. And now she's on the High School Educational Council called CCHS. So she has so much perspective over the entire system. And we can all give our feedback and happy to answer your questions at the end. We also have an interpreter tonight. So if you need Mandarin, at the bottom of your screen, there is a button for interpretation, and you can click on that and listen to the translation in Mandarin. So without further ado, I think we will get started, and take it away, Deborah.
Thank you, Lisa. Thank you, Yatin. So yes, my name is Deborah Alexander. I have been through, I guess, 12 admission cycles. None of them, no two were the same, but I hope to help everyone understand and understand what your options are now, maybe a little broader as we head towards middle school and high school. I'm just going to get started with our slideshow right now. So tonight we're going to first talk about kindergarten offers. I'll give you a little bit of an overview of all of the different types of programs there are. Some of this you may know, having just been through the process, but I also know we invited some parents of 3K and pre-K students who might want to listen in and get an idea of what's coming down the pike. Same thing with middle school and high school. So we'll give a little bit of a brief introduction to the programs and the rules. We'll talk about placements and wait lists and what you can do next now that you have your offers. We'll talk about the entry points in elementary school after kindergarten. When can you enter a program or a school? Then we'll go into middle school offers, placements and wait lists again. We'll talk about 7th grade entry into high school, 6 through 8 versus 6 to 12 schools. And then I'll give you a brief overview of what's coming your way via high school. The first thing I want to make sure that everyone is on the same page about is lottery numbers. Again, if you've been through this already, you understand that every student is assigned a random number. We colloquially call it a lottery number. The DOE assigns that number. You get that number when your application opens in my schools. And lottery numbers are used in 2 instances. First, when there are more applicants than seats, particularly in overcrowded schools. If there aren't enough seats, how do you decide which student who is zoned or entitled to go to that school gets the seat? You use a lottery number. And the second instance is to break a tie in screened admissions. So if you have 2 students with all 4s on their report card, how do you decide which student gets the screened seat? It's with the lottery number. You may or may not have seen this incredibly helpful chart that was created by Amelie Marian, who is a parent extraordinaire, but I don't want to say just a parent because she's amazing. And she decoded what the lottery numbers mean. If maybe someone can put this in the chat, it's really handy to have for each admission cycle. while your lottery number does not stay the same, it will change with each time you apply. The decoding and the chart will stay the same. So the lottery numbers will mean what they mean in this chart. But you will get a different lottery number, both for waitlists and for future admission cycles. This is a list I put together. Again, another overview slide. Again, if you've gone through this already.
Outsourced it.
Yes.
So it's not from the DOE because they didn't release that information to parents, but she asked in a survey of parents after the admission cycle, what was your child's lottery number? What schools did you get matched at? And that's how she kind of narrowed down the field to give a sense. It's not perfect, but it gives you a rough estimate for each school, what a cutoff might be, what kind of lottery number you might need.
So a lot of parents at this time who have multiple offers to I guess not kindergarten anymore. They used to have G&T offers separate from the regular kindergarten application, and now they have combined them. So you receive one offer. But for middle school, for high school, if you're looking, or let's say you have a charter school option or a parochial school option, as well as your DOE offer, people want to know, is this school good? Or what's this school like? And I think there are better, more helpful questions to ask. These are the kinds of questions that, having been through all the way to high school now, I find very helpful. So it's something to take note of. And we are gonna record it. We are recording this, so you can go back and take a look. But it's something when you're weighing multiple offers to think about: does the school have a library? If so, do they have a librarian? What after school options are there? These are just some helpful questions to ask when trying to figure out how to decide between multiple offers, or if you're researching a school to begin with. So again, just a brief overview for folks who haven't been through the kindergarten admission cycle. Every address in New York City has a zone. So you have an entitlement to go to the school to which you are zoned. There are 2 districts that are not zoned, that do not have zoned schools, but that's a whole other thing. You can find your zone school by typing in your address here. And you are entitled to a seat in your zone school unless it is overcrowded. So they'd like to not call it a guarantee, they call it an entitlement, but as long as the school is not overcrowded, you can always attend that school. And that's true whether or not you accept the offer that you're given, or whether you go back later. Let's say you want to go to a charter school and you don't like it and you want to go back to your zone school. As long as there's space, they must accept you. Families can rank up to 12 kindergarten programs, including G&T. It is now no longer a separate process. You just rank your 12 and they will give you one offer. And if you're happy, that's it. Accept your offer and then you'll register and you're all done until September. Now, what happens if you're unhappy with your offer? The main thing you can do is make sure you are on wait lists for programs to which you would like to attend. You're automatically, this is the most important thing, you don't have to put yourself on a wait list if you received an offer below what you wanted. So if you got your third choice, you are automatically placed on the wait list for schools 1 and 2. But let's say you found out about another school and you want to be on the wait list for that school. You can go into My Schools and manually add your child to that wait list. The only caveat to that is the priorities make these lists fluctuate a bit. So like I said, you have a zoned entitlement. That's a priority when they're looking at how to place a student in a seat. Whether you are in district, whether you have a sibling, if you're a continuing pre-K to K student, as well as lottery number. So if you're looking at wait lists, any position that you're in on the wait list, it may change, it may go up, it may go down based on people who might or might not have a priority higher than yours who've now added themselves to a wait list. But waitlists are open and active until the end of September, which is after school starts. It is fairly common for people to get offers after school starts. A lot of people don't take them because they've started a school and everything is great. And so then someone else gets called. So there's a lot of movement between now and the summer. Even over the summer, DOE is still in session and they will call you over the summer and say a seat has opened up all the way through the end of September. Something that's very important to know is that schools have no access and do not control their wait lists. It's all done at the central DOE office. So calling a school and saying, where am I on the wait list? Can I get in? I want to go. They, even if they wanted to, they couldn't do anything about it. It's just all done at the central office. Other alternatives we talked about are charter schools. There's a lot of options depending on where you are. I think I've been seeing a lot of the charter offers going out in the last week or two. And one other tip is for parochial and private schools, we're way past their typical deadline. However, call them. If you decide I want to go to a parochial or a private school, forget about their deadline. If they have a seat, they are generally happy to talk to you and potentially offer you a seat. So don't think that just because the deadline passed that you're out of luck for those options. These are a couple of other things to consider specifically for kindergarten. Distance, whether it's a local school, a district school, or a citywide school. I will tell you that I sent my kids to school from the northernmost part of my district to the southernmost part of my district. It was 9 years of going to a school that was not my local school. And it takes a toll. It was worth it because I felt it was their appropriate education. However, you have to consider things like, can you then pick up your child if they're sick? What about PTA meetings? What about going in to meet the teacher? All sorts of in-person events that it's not just the commute to and from school to consider when you are looking at local versus district or citywide. Whether or not you are eligible for a yellow bus, that information you can find on the OPT website. It stands for Office of Pupil Transportation. And anyone who's going to need a bus should learn that website. That's got everything to do with busing and stops and pickup times and all of that. One thing to know is that the routes are generally not created for the yellow bus routes for elementary school until the end of the summer. So you may not hear anything about where your school bus stop is or who's going to be there until late August. Types of programs. So we have gifted and talented programs. We have dual language programs. We have general ed programs. And when we have programs that are for special education. And one of those is called ICT. That's integrated co-teaching. And that's where half of the class has an IEP and half of the class is general education designation. And there are 2 teachers in the room, one who is certified in special education and one who's a general education teacher. Kids who are in gifted and talented and dual language tend to stay together throughout the years in elementary school. So they don't mix up those cohorts. But general education and ICT students, they generally mix them up among the different cohorts in their grades. So you may or may not have the same kids in your class the next year. You may be in a general education class for 2nd grade, but an ICT class for 3rd grade. Something to consider is how the school serves children with special education needs. Do they have the therapies that your child needs on site, or will they have to bring someone in, or will you have to send your child out? Do they have speech therapy, occupational therapy? Where do they give them? Give the services? Is it in the cafeteria? Do they have a special room for the therapies? After school, what options are offered if you need that? And then definitely, I'm sure everybody is considering whether or not you have siblings, whether they're going to be at the same school or not. a K-5 option versus a K-8 option, and in some rare instances, a K-12 option. So the benefit of a K-8 or a K-12 school is you are guaranteed a seat all the way to the terminal grade, they call it, till the last grade of that school. And you have a right to remain in that school unless you choose to leave. So it is a nice backup if you want to stay there. You can still apply to other schools at middle school and high school level, but you don't have to. You also have the right to stay. Okay, so other entry points. So you've got your kindergarten offer, you're going to give it a try, and then maybe you're not happy there. What do you do? Are you stuck in your elementary school? Not necessarily. You can enter in first grade, in second grade, third grade, and fourth grade for G&T. Those are separate processes apart from the kindergarten application process. In fact, I believe that's opening up right now for those entry points. You can call a school and see if they have open seats in first grade or second grade or third grade. If they have open seats and it's in your district, you'll consult the Family Welcome Center and say, hey, I would like to transfer my student. In the past, they were pretty strict that transfers would only be allowable if there was a great need, if there was a safety risk or some other kind of hardship, but they've become a lot more flexible. So if you say, my child is unhappy here, I am unhappy with the school, there's a seat available at this other school, they tend to make it happen. For gifted and talented, the first through fourth grade entry points, yes, so the application period opens April 15th and closes May 3rd, and you'll get offers on June 12th. And the eligibility is based on the 4 core subjects. That's ELA, or English, math, science, and social studies. On the final report card grade on a scale of 1 to 4. If you're coming from a non-DOE school, they will make an equivalent. They'll figure out how that translates. And lottery. As I'm sure you all know, there's more interest for gifted and talented seats than there are seats. So when you have a child, 2 children with all 4s, the only differentiation will be their lottery number. Sibling priority. Yeah.
Can I add one thing?
Yeah.
It's great you have all this information. The DOE is working a little bit better, I think, in terms of the deadlines, because when my child got into gifted and talented in second grade, we had the same process, but we didn't hear until August. So they are trying to give families more time now, making the deadline where you hear back by June 12th. That gives families time to plan and decide what they're going to do for the next academic year. They have 2 months instead of I had 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And the other thing is that, if you are interested in having your child apply in first, second, third, or fourth grade, let your child's teacher know. Have a conversation with your child's teacher so that you guys can all be on the same page in terms of, do you think the child is performing at above expectation, above standards with the 4 on the report card? Don't let it be a surprise at the end of the year that the report card is not what the family wanted, and so now we don't have this opportunity anymore. Just work with your child's teacher, because more likely than not, they're going to support you and help you if this is an opportunity you want to have for your kids.
Yep, absolutely. And sibling priority will still apply. So if you have a sibling at a school and you're applying to gifted and talented in another grade or in kindergarten, one of those priorities that I talked about is you will be competing only against that student will be competing only against those who make all of the requirements and have a sibling. So they sort of go to the head of the line if you have a sibling. Charter and parochial and private, those are some options. We are a little bit less familiar with them. We're more the DOE side of things, but I do know that the charter school admissions are done with a central application, a centralized system. The lottery was used to be was at the beginning of April, but some schools are still admitting students. We talked about parochial and private, but good to note that at this point, if a parochial or private school did admit at this point they would not be offering any financial aid. Moving on to middle schools. And again, I think it's super duper important for families who, for the younger families, whether you applied to kindergarten this year, will be applying to kindergarten next year, or have an elementary school student, please pay attention to the middle and high school slides, because those processes, everything builds on itself. And it's really important to know what's coming down the pike. Not worry about it, not stress about it, but just be familiar with it. And there's no guarantee that the DOE won't shift things around by the time you get there, but we're in a fairly stable period of application processes. So I would pay attention. So middle schools, the situation varies district by district. There are some districts that have zoned middle schools, and that behaves exactly the way elementary school zoning works. You have an address that's tied to a school. The districts where all middle schools are unzoned, there are districts where all middle schools are unzoned and students can apply to any of the middle schools. They call that middle school choice. There's districts that have a mixed process where there are some zone schools and some choice schools. The choice schools may have a separate application process that involves grades, that involves language. And then there are citywide middle schools. So there's citywide gifted and talented middle schools, just like there are citywide gifted and talented elementary schools. They tend to have very, very few seats, because there are 5 citywide gifted and talented programs. They go, 4 of them go K through 8, and 1 of them goes K through 12, and many of them choose to stay. So the only available seats tend to be any attrition that happens, any students who actually leave and go somewhere else or move. Those are the handful of seats that tend to open up. So, and then there's accelerated and talent schools. There's talent-based middle schools, as well as Mark Twain, that's both academically and talent acceleration. That is in Brooklyn. There's a screened or unscreened. An unscreened school might be a choice school, or it might be a zoned school. Again, you have to check and see in your district what the requirements are. And you can see that on My Schools. My Schools has all of this information, but this is just an idea of what's out there. So you can have a zoned school, a screened school, an unscreened school, an unscreened zone school. And sibling priority continues through the end of middle school. So if you have an 8th grader in that school, you can have, or a child who is going to be an 8th grader in the fall, you can have you have priority to your younger child. So middle school families, if you're here and you received your offer, if you're happy, you're done. The school already knows you're there, already knows that you are headed their way. You don't have to do anything. You don't have to re-register. You just show up in September. If you are unhappy with your middle school offer, check out the waitlists, and the same rules for waitlists apply that I talked about with regard to elementary school. You are automatically placed on the waitlists for all programs that you ranked above the seat that you got, and you can add your child to any other waitlist that you didn't already add them to. So a lot of parents ask, would they automatically add my child to a seat on my list but was below my offer? No. So just because you ranked all 12, if you got your third choices 4 through 12 vanish, and it's like you never did anything. So you have to, if you want to add yourself to one of those schools, you have to do it proactively. Waitlists remain open until 2 weeks after school starts. And as I mentioned earlier, lottery numbers are redrawn. So that's good news. If you didn't have a great lottery number for the main round, you may end up getting a fabulous number for the waitlists. Some considerations for middle school. For the parents of littles, I know it's impossible to think about them going and commuting on their own, but I promise you they will do great and it will happen, and it happens for all of the kids, even though we think it's impossible. So you do have to think about not only how much time and how much distance there is between your house and your middle school, but I always say it's the ease of the commute rather than the length of the commute. So a 20-minute commute that involves 2 trains and a bus might be less preferable than an hour-long commute on one bus. So you are entitled to a yellow bus if you live, I believe, a mile away from school for 6th grade only. They will provide a yellow bus, and buses are not provided in between districts or in between boroughs. So if you're going to middle school in your district and you are more than a mile away from the school, for 6th grade, you get a yellow bus. After that, they are walking, or they're taking public transportation, or you are driving them. The only exception to that is Louis Armstrong Middle School in Queens. It's in District 30, my home district. Louis Armstrong Middle School is a very special snowflake that was created by court order, and they provide, it's a borough-wide school. So they take kids from all over Queens, and they provide a bus for all 3 years. All 4 years. Louis Armstrong is a grade 5 through 8 school. You're going to look at the size. Do you want a big school, a small school? And when you're thinking about size, it's not just about the number of students. So a small school might sound great because fewer kids and more attention for the kids, but that means fewer dollars coming in, fewer programs offered. Perhaps they can't fund an orchestra or an after-school program because there aren't enough kids to support that. So there are pros and cons to small schools and big schools, something to think about for your child. Will they have electives, languages, clubs, after school, all of that stuff. You want to start thinking about whether you are focusing on academics, or you can see that your child is heading in on an artistic path or a talent path, because you want to start beginning to think about the high school application process. Middle school goes by super fast. By the time you start 6th grade, you are already thinking ahead to high school, because 7th grade, that's the grade that matters for academics predominantly, and it goes by very, very quickly. So you want to be prepared for that. If you are thinking of looking towards a specialized high school, do you want to start preparing your child? Do you want to start thinking about any extra help? Where are their strengths? Where are their weaknesses? How can you support them so that by the time 8th grade applications roll around, you're ready for them? It's not a surprise. Do you want to start getting your child involved in music lessons or drawing lessons because they are showing artistic talent? You want to start thinking about that at the beginning of middle school. And again, with the larger grade bands, a 6 to 8 school versus a 6 to 12 school, you get that priority for high school. You get that guaranteed seat, but again, you're not required to stay at a 6 to 8 or a 6 to 12 school. You're not required to stay at a 6 to 12. You can apply elsewhere for high school. So the last entry issue or opportunity, I should say, is coming into a school in 7th grade. Now, if you want to switch to a school, the same process that I described for elementary school would apply, where if you wanted to go to a different school in your district and you were having issues with one school, you could go to the Family Welcome Center, and that might be a possibility, but it might not. But there are two schools that are incredibly popular, academically accelerated programs that have their own entry admissions process. The first one is Hunter College High School. And Hunter College High School is a 7 through 12 school. Lisa is an expert on Hunter because she has a child there. It is a citywide school, so kids from the entire city can apply, even though the school is in Manhattan. It is actually not run by the DOE, it's run by Hunter College. And entry in 7th grade is based on an in-person test. They usually have that in January of 6th grade. You get an invitation to take the test based on the 5th grade state test scores. So again, just reminding you, all of these things sort of build. on each other. So fifth grade state tests, even though fourth grade is the year they look at for grades for middle school, fifth grade matters somewhat because there's a seventh grade entry that's going to look at your fifth grade test scores. So if you make the cutoff to take the test, they will invite your child to take the test in January of sixth grade. And it is extremely academically rigorous. And you're guaranteed a seat through high school. It is actually a K through 12 school. And anyone can actually apply in kindergarten, which is different. If you have been around a long time, it used to be that only Manhattan residents could apply at the kindergarten level, but anyone can apply in kindergarten as well. And the second school is Baccalaureate School for Global Education, which is in Queens and gives priority to Queens residents. It is a 7 to 12 school. It offers an international baccalaureate diploma, which is a very prestigious kind of diploma. They don't offer AP classes. They have special exams that they take. It's a different diploma that is recognized internationally and highly regarded in this country. And entry is in seventh grade. They have their own process. You would go through my schools, and they have an in-person assessment, which this year was they do some writing in person. They look at grades, and they look at and they have like a group activity that they do in person. They also have entry at the ninth grade level as well. But there are fewer seats because, again, kids tend to stay. So seventh grade, it's easier. There are more seats available to get into baccalaureate in seventh grade. And then just to go back to Louis Armstrong, it's something to consider if you are in Queens and you might want to move before the middle school process. You might want to get into Louis Armstrong in fifth grade. It is the only 5 through 8 school in the city. But again, they will bus. So you apply in either fourth or fifth grade for their fifth or sixth grade program. And the way that they accept students is based on the last census data. They want to try and mirror the demographics of Queens. That was the court order that created that school, to create a school that reflected the demographics of Queens. So it varies somewhat sometimes, but that's the only factor that they consider. They have a big focus on the arts, and they are also, while they're not a G&T school per se, they are a somewhat accelerated school. They have regents that are offered in both 7th and 8th grade. I don't know how many schools actually start in 7th. Taking a regents course, incidentally, is a positive for many people because that counts towards high school credit. That is now a class you do not have to take in high school, and it frees up your schedule to take something else in high school, a more advanced course or a free period or an arts elective. So that's a nice opportunity. Okay, I'm not going to talk a ton about high school. I think most of our families here are younger, but as I said, I think it's important to get a high level look at what the high school process looks like. There are 400 schools and 700 programs because a school might have a separate admissions process for a program within that school. There are 3 different application pathways. Basically, you have your general high school application, which you have to fill out, and you'll rank 12 just like you ranked 12 at the previous middle school and elementary level. Then there's a specialized high school. There are 8 specialized high schools that use the specialized high school admissions test, or the SHSAT, and that you rank separately. And then LaGuardia High School is audition and academic based, and you can rank up to 6 different studios. So you might get an offer at your main round, at your specialized high school, and you can get 2 or 3, or you can get up to 6 offers if you are a vocalist and a fabulous singer and dancer, an actor. You can get all of offers to LaGuardia as well. And then, boy, oh boy, do you have a decision to make. So That's basically and just looking, there are different kinds of schools within the main round. You have screen schools, audition schools, zoned. There are some zoned high schools, but very few, about 38 or 40 zoned high schools. CTE is a really burgeoning, emerging section of schools that is incredible because they prepare kids for both college and career, and it doesn't have to be one or the other, but they're very targeted. So you could go to the School of Food and Finance, or there's a school that is marine biology focused, the Harbor School, or for engineering at Aviation High School. There's, if your child has an interest, they probably have a CTE school for it. And then there are early college programs where you can complete high school in 2 years, and then the 10th and 11th and 12th grade, you receive enough credits to get an associate's degree for college. So lots and lots of options, but if you have questions on it, happy to answer, but don't stress too much about it. But you can see that you want to have an advanced idea of what's coming down the pike. For high school considerations, where you live, there are other priorities. We talked about priorities. So students with disabilities are apply in their own category. A lot of schools hold seats aside for low-income students. They call it diversity in admissions. Whether or not you're a continuing student and have that priority, whether or not you have a sibling, all of those things come into play. And then the way that they do it in middle school, it was you were looking at your final 4th grade report card in the core subjects. So for high school, they have different tiers. So they look based on your 7th grade final 4 core subject grades. And you're either in tier 1, which this year gave you an average of 94.1, maybe. And it was close in other years as well, but around 94 as an average. And that went from 94 down to 89. And then tier 2 was 89 to 85, let's say. And the school will give you priority based on what tier you're in. And then the lottery random number comes into play, like we talked about as well. When it's in high school, it's mainly to break ties. So if you have a child who auditioned at a school and got a 98 on their violin audition, how would you break the tie? And that's where the lottery number would come in. So what should you do now? You're here. That's great. That's the first thing. You want to know what to do next. Familiarize yourself with the K-12 system. So knowing that, yes, it could change. For example, they used to use state tests in the screening process. They would factor in both grades and state test scores. Currently, they are not. Post-COVID, they have not gone back to that. It's something that you never know. They could in the future. So keep that in the back of your head when you're thinking about, would I opt my child out of a state test? Or, it's something to think about because the DOE can change on a dime. Research schools. Go to open houses. They are because of COVID, one of the positives that came out is a lot of schools have virtual open houses online. You can go to YouTube and search up a school and you can find a chorus concert, you can find an open house, a walking tour. Some schools, not a lot, have spring open houses. They tend to be just for accepted students, but some of them have open houses for future students. Whatever grade you're applying to in the fall, you want to have done some legwork in the spring before. Schools are closed over the summer. You have no opportunity to get in. So we have another month and a half right now. If you're applying in the fall, you don't want to leave it all to September, October, because it is a lot of work and a lot of going around from school to school. Definitely, you will be happy if you did some of that legwork earlier. PTA meetings and SLT stands for School Leadership Team. Those meetings must be open to the public. So you can go there. You're not allowed necessarily to speak, but you can observe. Another great way to get a feel for a school and for their parent leadership. And if you're interested in screen schools for your child, have them maintain good grades. Even if we're talking 2nd grade or 3rd grade, you want to keep that in the back of their mind, because come 4th grade or come 7th grade, you want them to be in the habit of achieving the highest score they can achieve. The last thing I'm going to talk about is something that is coming down the pike because it is law. So a couple years ago, the legislature passed and the governor signed a class size limit law. So right now, our current class sizes are you have 18 for pre-K, 25 for kindergarten, and then 32 up until high school, and then I think it's 34. But under the new law that has already gone into effect, K through 3 classes have to be a maximum of 20 students. 4 through 8 is a maximum of 23, and 9 through 12 is a maximum of 25. And I have on the right-hand side of the screen when the city has to comply. So this year was the first year 20% of all New York City schools had to comply with the law by this past September. And without doing anything, the city naturally complied because not all schools are overcrowded. In this coming September, they're required to have 40% of the schools in compliance. And because, again, naturally, 40% of the schools complied on their own, there were no changes to admissions for this past cycle. However, come the fall and that next admission cycle for the September 2025 entrance, the city has to have 60% of its schools in compliance. And that means that schools have to figure out how they can comply, which means they need additional space, they need additional teachers, and they need additional money. Currently, those things are all in short supply. If a school cannot comply within their existing space, they may be forced to cap enrollment at those schools. We know for a fact that certain very, very popular schools have already said they need to cut their enrollment by 200, 300 kids. So zone schools for kindergarten in popular areas may very well see a capped school, and then the DOE would have to send a zone child out of their neighborhood to another district school, hopefully district school. For the choice programs in middle school and high school that are already, there are more kids interested than seats. There will be even more, even fewer kids will be accepted. And you'll see the following year is 80%, and the year after that is when they're supposed to be the September 2027, the city is supposed to be in 100% compliance. So it's something we've kept our eyes on for since the bill was floated. The implementation of the law is incredibly flawed, even though personally I am very much in favor, I think we all are in favor of lower class sizes as a concept. It's just the way the law is written in this very, very short time frame, not considering how long it takes to build a school, not considering the fact that we're in New York City and space and teachers are in short supply. It's going to mean that individual schools have to make some really tough choices in the years ahead. So it's something to keep in mind if you are in a very popular, overcrowded school district, particularly families in Queens, particularly families in South Brooklyn, and particularly Staten Island families. This affects Manhattan slightly less. The overcrowding in Manhattan and the Bronx is a little bit less, but it's going to have a ripple effect on all schools. So I think with that, it's a lot, but it will be okay. I survived it. You will too. And I'm going to stop talking and see if anyone has questions. You can just raise your hand or shout out or however you want to do it. No questions.
There's lots of questions in the chat.
Hi. Oh, great.
Oh, yes, go ahead.
Sorry, am I on? It's Joanne Hessian. So I just have a question about the high school admissions process. So I know it's like you said, the grades for 7th grade, right? And they're put into groups.
Yep.
So I don't know if you know the answer to this or if there's been any word about it. Um, the concern has to do with like the subjectivity of the grading. And I mean, that's obviously an issue.
Yeah.
And then it's also like certain schools, they come to their grade, like their grading system is so different
It's
across
not apples to
schools.
apples, correct?
Yeah, like I know like one middle school does 30% is assessments and then another one is 70%. So it's like, do they take that into consideration?
They
I can answer
unfortunately,
this one, Deb, because
go ahead, Jean.
I'm going through this right now. I have a child currently in 7th grade. We're applying our school, my daughter's in an honors program. Our school has a good number of honors classes in addition to the gen ed class. It does not matter when you apply to high school if your child is getting straight A's or high grades in a gen ed versus honors. And 100%, you're right. Some schools have a very lax grading system versus other schools, which are much more rigorous. So
Yeah.
the schools and the children, the students that are actually disadvantaged are the ones that are coming from competitive schools.
Yeah.
Where, yeah, exactly. Competitive schools where the kids are getting more rigorous work and the grading is stiffer.
Yeah, I feel like they're penalized for it.
Yep, 100%. We, as Place, have been advocating to at least use multiple measures and bring back the state tests, which are more objective,
Mhm.
and you at least have a more holistic admissions process. All of the things you mentioned are, to me, incredibly problematic.
Yes,
Wow.
but to date, they're not doing anything about it. And it's incredibly frustrating because I see my daughter plus my niece attend the same school,
Mhm.
and my niece is flying through in a gen ed class because she gets no homework versus my daughter who has like 2 to 3 hours of homework every night. So it's just wild
No.
to me that she first she has to get a lottery number, which we don't know what that even means and that or what that'll even be. And then on top of that, she's not subjected to the same criteria in the classes. So yeah, there definitely is a disparity there. Is
Yeah.
something that places making noise about and will continue to make noise about, but we only are effective at making noise when other parents are also chiming in. So
Yeah. Yeah.
And one other alternative would be to wait those programs that are accelerated the way they do for a lot of high school programs as well. And colleges look at the school and say, okay, a 90 here is not the same as a 90 here, and they understand that, but this system is not set up for that. If they could give a weight to the schools that are doing more rigorous work, that might be
Right.
something. But even like Jean said, it's subjective even within a gen ed program, depending on the teacher you have. If you have a teacher in 7th grade that is particularly lax, or particularly strict.
And the grading and the proportions being
Yeah.
so
well,
significant.
my daughter's science teacher went on maternity leave, and I gotta say my daughter's grades jumped by 5 points. So it definitely matters, even in the same class.
Yeah. I mean, even like I think I don't know. I feel like most schools have a standard set. Like, like I know like one middle school I know does 30% assessments, another one, like I said, is 70, which I mean, I feel like off the bat, there's gonna be, I mean, at least a 10-point GPA difference when you have 30% versus 70. So I almost was like wondering if they were transparent about that, like if the schools had to post like, but I guess not. You're saying no, there's no like
Well,
no.
within a school, they should be transparent about that. That's part of the SLT parent compact, I believe. So if your school is not, you should ask your principal or your SLT, because you as a parent of a school, but they wouldn't necessarily post that like for the city to see
Right.
about your school.
Right. Yeah. I was wondering if they put it for like a screen schools, if it was like
Yeah.
transparent. No, it's not. Okay. Well, thank you.
I'm sorry, one thing to add to that is at the beginning of the school year, what you could do if your child is a rising 7th grader, is reach out to the parent coordinator or the principal and ask what the school's cutoff is for the different tiers for high school, because it differs a little bit than the city. The city will put out one set of metrics, But then your school, depending on what the schools is, because it's either it's either the grade or it's a top 15% citywide. So
Right.
the
So it-
citywide might differ from your school. So
it's, I didn't get into the weeds on that, but you make tier one by being in the top 15% in your school. This is how they try and mitigate it a little bit, or top 15 percent of the citywide average. So the citywide average was the 94 I was talking about, but you also have to make the top 10% in your school.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
I see a hand
yeah.
raised. Yeah, Galia. Did I say that right?
Yes,
Can I
hi.
unmute? Okay, yeah, hi.
Hi, yes. I have a kindergarten question. Actually, a couple of questions. So my first question is, we received a couple of offers for kindergarten, and actually like 3 offers. My question is, if I receive one of the offers, does it mean others get declined automatically? And does it take us out of wait list for other schools?
So if you accept offer one, is that what you're asking? If you accept one offer, yes, if that's what you're asking, correct. If you receive offer A, B, and C, and you accept offer A, you are now removed from B and C and the wait lists.
And the wait list.
Not the wait lists of schools above what you ranked. Those will always stay.
Okay. But anything below below my ranks, then they will
Yeah.
be declined.
Correct.
Okay. And okay, understood. And another question, there are a few like brand new schools coming up this year. And I guess my question, I was also considering one of the new schools this year, and I wanted to ask, what's your opinion about that, about like new schools? My concern is really like, we don't know what's going to be, and like there is no feedback or reviews or anything about the new schools. And just like what to consider or not, what to think
There's
about.
a lot of considerations and a couple of things to think about. Obviously, yes, you have no track record. You don't even technically have a principal. You have a director until they vote in the principal. But some things to think about. At this point, every new school should have a director, and you can look them up and see where they came from, what their philosophy is like. You can ask them, I'm considering your school, it's new. Another consideration is that there won't be a PTA yet formed. So, and while a lot is new, a lot is just not in place yet. All of the new schools I've watched have opened beautifully. There also won't be kids in grades above. So you won't have, it'll be a quiet school, and it'll be not a very active, huge PTA because they haven't fulfilled all the grades yet. So think about it. It's a brand new building, which is nice, and you're a fresh start and no baggage. And, there's a lot of pros and a lot of things to say. Do I want something that I feel a little more comfortable with because it's a known quantity? And you're not inventing the wheel. So you have to start up a PTA, you have to start up a school leadership team. You have to start figuring out what you even need to fundraise for, and then fundraise for it with a small amount of parents. So pros and cons.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Any other hands raised? Yatin, I think there's a few questions in the chat in Mandarin.
In China, yes. I think Yifeng is answering some of them, I see. I hope she is, because
Okay.
I can only read 3rd grade Chinese, and I can't even read the questions unless I get them translated. So I think Yifeng is going through them now. So
Okay. So, we have another hand up from Rebecca.
Hi, I have a 3rd grader that's in a charter school right now, and I'm wondering if can she is she at a disadvantage to get into a G&T middle school because she's in a charter, or is that weighed in any sort of capacity, or is it it's just her grades from 5th grade that's the most critical thing?
It's all
And the-
done by a computer, so there's no thought of where they're coming from, like no disadvantage, no weighing, nothing. She's going to go into the My School system and she will have her scores, and that's it.
And it's just that last quarter of 5th grade grades that matter.
The final marking period grade. So however the school does it, if
Got it.
it's a running record or if it's an average of all the marking periods, but it's whatever the final grade is on the report card.
Got it. Thank you.
Sure.
Other questions? I'll just take a look at the chat. So there were multiple, some about Wagner. So with a zone school, Wagner is a zoned middle school in District 2. And just this year, in the middle school application, the superintendent announced that they would have honors programs again at the 4 zoned middle schools in District 2. They had a special process, SP classes, in those zone schools, and then the pandemic hit, and there was a lot of fluctuation with admissions, so they had taken those away, and this year they're reintroducing the honors track at those 4 zone schools. So I had a 5th grader this year, and we went through this process, and all you have to do if you want to apply to one of these 4 zoned honors programs, you just put it on the ranking. So you get to rank 12 schools or 12 programs. And if you want one of those to be honors Wagner and then another one to be general education Wagner, you put them both down. And then, depending on your child's 4th grade report card, those 4 core subjects, ELA, math, science, and social studies. They look at the grades. If your child got 4s, and some children who were admitted to the honors programs had 3s. So it's not all 4s, it's some that are 4s and 3s. We don't know exactly yet the breakdown because they are just starting this up again. But so it's based on the report card and your lottery number. So definitely, if you're interested in the honors track, put that program and you can apply. One other thing is, so the honors tracks, even though it's at the zone school, Wagner, you don't have to be at that zone school. That doesn't have to be your zone school. So my family is zoned for Baruch. We still put down honors Wagner and honors Baruch. And you can put down all 4 honors programs. So you're not limited if you're not in the Wagner zone. The only thing the zone comes into play is that's your guarantee in District 2. We have a zone school. Every family is guaranteed a spot in the general education zone school. But you can list all 4 honors programs at all 4 of those schools, in addition to, at the very bottom of your list, the zoned general education program. That's kind of your safety net, your guarantee. So, they look at the report card and they look at your lottery number. Brenda, I see that you said that you got an offer from a non-zone school, and then your zone school Wagner was contacting you because they didn't see your child's name on the list. Sorry, I don't know if you're Wagner or not, but your zone school contacted you. But if you took the non-zoned option, that's fine. As it's already guaranteed, that's your spot in the non-zoned option. Yep,
Oh, okay. Thank you.
sure.
Lisa, can I add one thing to that? This
Yeah.
is with regards to the class size. I would say around 10 years ago when my daughter applied to pre-K here in our neighborhood, in theory, we were guaranteed a zoned option, but we did not get a zoned offer. And that was due to the overcrowding. So when we talk about the class size and the class size law, the law is really written as if class size is the only thing that matters to a child and not the other things like being able to attend a neighborhood school. And in that same year, it also that we were shut out of pre-K, we ended up having to send our child to a much closer private pre-K, which we had to pay money for. But there were probably a lot of parents, I can't, when I say probably, I don't know the exact number, but there were a good number of parents that were actually declined their supposedly guaranteed seat at for kindergarten. So it doesn't happen often, and it caused a huge headache for the for the local city council member and the community board people. Parents were just outraged, like, why can't my child get a seat at the local zoned school? Because they hadn't anticipated that happening. But with the class size law, something like this could happen on a much wider scale basis. I think in that instance, they ended up working something out, and the administration at the school was able to fit parents in. But I think it was after some parents just kind of left and said, forget it. We're not even going to try. So that is one reason to if you're living, especially in the outer boroughs where you do, a lot of parents depend on and move to the neighborhood for their zone school, to pay attention to this issue.
CY asks what the deadline to accept or reject a kindergarten offer is, and I don't know. It's they didn't list it, but I'm sure they have it on the acceptance letter. Does anybody know the actual date? But it's like, it's not information they gave every other date about when they were going to, when you had to apply by, when their results were going to come out, and then it just says, and then please accept your offer. So I don't know. I'm sorry. It should, if you are waiting, it should say it on your letter.
And the individual school might know the deadline to register by, and if you miss that deadline of registration, then they're going to give your spot to somebody else.
哦，就是说，就是幼儿园收到 offer 的那些
Translation?
But wait, was that a question or did?
I don't know. Oh,
Yifeng?
that was the translation.
Yeah. But you have time. You also have time to register. Don't feel like you have to run to register. They will take registration up until the last day of school. They'll take it in the fall. So you go. You have to bring your child. That's something that I didn't realize at the time. You have to go, and you have to bring your child in person and then proof of your address. And go to the main office and they'll register you. But take your time. A lot of schools have appointments. Some schools just say walk in.
Oh, somebody in the chat wrote it's Friday, May 3rd for the kindergarten decision.
Awesome. Thank you. Friday, May 3rd.
I think there was a comment or a question in the chat about, I called a few schools for kindergarten G&T and I was told that offers did not go out, yet only eligibility on the kindergarten offer letter. Do you have any more information on kindergarten G&T admissions and waitlist? This is not what I heard. From our understanding is that the offers went out at the same time as all kindergarten offers. So on that kindergarten offer, if you got G&T, you would know that you got G&T. And if you didn't get G&T and you got a different kindergarten at your local school, that's your offer.
What you will encounter at many schools pertains to what I said about the system often being in flux, and what a lot of school officials knew to be the system. Some of them have not necessarily realized that it has changed. And I don't know if they did this, if this was the same as last year, but last year, was it a combined process too?
Yes.
So,
yes.
But I think that was the first year that they combined.
Yes.
So prior to last year's admission cycle, they were two separate processes. So that person who answered the phone might have been thinking that it was that you only know that they're two separate application processes. So it used to be that you'd apply to Gen Ed, then you would take the G&T test in January or February, then you would get a G&T offer and then a Gen Ed offer, and then you would have to decide between the two. They've merged those processes now into one. So like Lisa said, you should know just from that first offer.
This is Yifan. I think most of the parents are in the interpreter line they left. I do actually want to clarify a question. So I think we said that for elementary school and middle school, there's like sibling priorities. I don't think that's true for some of the middle schools, especially in South Brooklyn. I know for a fact it's not true for some of the screen schools and also for Matwin, they are not true. So Matwin doesn't have sibling priority. Crystal McAuliffe, I don't think it has sibling priority. And I heard that this will be the last year that the BSI, Brooklyn School of Inquiry, has sibling priority. Next year, they're getting rid of it. So
They can't. That's a citywide policy. It's not a school by school policy. If they're not honoring that, and I would be surprised if they're not, because again, they don't manage their admissions processes. The sibling priority is done for every, it's a citywide rule. A school can't get rid of it if they want to. So very often the administration in a school doesn't necessarily know these things or doesn't communicate it properly, but if a school is telling you that, let me know, and I can point them to the regulation that lists that they have to follow sibling priority.
I actually am pretty sure as well as Vincent in the group chat. So like in D20, a lot of the screen schools as well as Matwin, I know for a fact, we do not have sibling priority. Those are the screen schools, and then you require taking a talent test or like subject test to get in. Like for a fact, we know that they don't have a sibling priority. My son went through the process just last year, and some of the parents are going through the process here. I've actually encountered quite a few, but I think like middle school is a very like district by district base, on a district by district base. I think it does vary a lot. Anyway, just
I'm gonna talk to Steve Stowe about it, because that's not my understanding of how the priority
talk to
works.
him.
Yeah.
Yeah, I actually want to know because like it's a question that's been brought up a lot. Yeah, thank you.
Cool. I'll get in touch with you, Yifeng.
Sure.
Any others? There's no question too small.
Yeah.
Well, if there's no others, last call. It was great having everyone join tonight. Thank you, Deborah, so much for that overview of everything and all those details. Thank you, Yi Chen, for translation. Thank you, Yatin, for bringing us all together. Oh, one more message. Are GNT teachers trained differently than general ed teachers?
Excellent question. So there is what they call an extension that a teacher can get. It's not a separate certification technically, but they had taken additional 12 credits called an extension, and they would get a GNT extension. And GNT teachers who get that extension, in my experience, are wonderful and understand the accelerated learner and the social emotional issues that come with those learners, as well as how to teach those learners. However, not every grade, not every program, it's not required. So that is a good question to ask if you're interested in a GNT program. Are your GNT teachers, do they have that extension? Again, you can say certified, they'll understand what you mean. Technically, it's not a certification, it's an extension, but it's a great question, and in my opinion, it matters a lot.
Yeah, good question. Thank you, everyone, for joining tonight.
And I want to say for the third and last time, don't stress about stuff that's far away. Just be familiar with it. It's not anything to be worrying about at all. But have that idea that it all builds.
Right. And you're going to come across other parents as your kids go through school. There's going to be ones with older siblings, and you're going to speak to those parents, and you're going to get ideas about the local district schools and the programs that you're interested in. So yes, it's just keep learning and growing along with your children. All right. Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Bye.
Thank you,
Thank
Lisa.
you. Thank you.